Welcome to Stu and the Nut, online radio podcast, policy, politics. We're here to give you an honest opinion, different perspective. We do this by not only interviewing us, but also sharing you. Interact with us in the chat room via our Facebook. We would like to thank those who make this show possible and bring it to you. Our show sponsors were Media Solutions, BlueHammer.com, Beard Publishing, and of course, we would also great things for yours. PinupsForVets.com, Orrin F. Bruner, USS. And of course, the Enlisted 9 Fight Company. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nunn. Stu here, and as you can see, to my left, your right, joined by the Nunn. How you doing, Toby?
Good, man. I'm here just trying to do that little social media thing, get us up and shared.
Yep.
But it's great to be on. It's a wonderful Tuesday night. Hopefully the weather in Buffalo is better than the weather here in Texas. We had a gorgeous day the other day, and then, like they say, if you don't like the weather in Texas, wait till tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a balmy. It was like a balmy 50 degrees today. It was great weather, so we cannot complain at all. That's for sure. I'm gonna do a little tech stuff. If you want to kind of open up and do some opening there, Toby.
Yeah. So, welcome to the show, everybody. The lots of things to talk about tonight. One thing we're probably not going to be talking about is the start of the new season of The Voice. We're going to go ahead and skip that. But we got a great show tonight. We have another great guest, Mike Scotti, previous guest of the show. It's been a while since he's been on because he's been out and about in the world researching and participating in the process that's going to bring his new book out. And we're going to talk about that when he's on the show. Lots going on. The nation's really on fire right now. Maybe that's not the right terminology. Is really just getting heated. The gun debate. It's everywhere. I have not been able to escape it. It doesn't matter if I'm in the gym working out. It doesn't matter if I'm in my truck, what channel I go to. People are talking about it. You can't hide from it on social media. It's all over the place. The kids are talking about it, and I don't just mean like kids on television. I mean like kids around the neighborhood, kids around the house. Everyone's kind of talking about it. So it's a real interesting thing. It's a very polarized, hot button topic, more so than I've seen any other topic in a while. So we're going to talk about that after Mike's on. The Olympics just wrapped. You heard it here first. On behalf of all Canadians that are good sports, congratulations, girls, U.S. women's team. Fantastic, fantastic victory. You deserve every bit of that victory. And I will say to the young lady from Canada that took her medal off after it was presented, shame on you. Yes, you're disappointed. No reason to be a sore sport. You got beat. You've won a lot, and you got beat that game. I'm a Canadian. I'm a fan of sport. I tell you that the women's hockey in the Olympics was superior. You heard it here. Superior to the men's. Superior in play, superior in ability. I mean, like, no one can ever say, like, that women's hockey is not legit hockey. They did a better job of hockey than the men did at the Olympics. And my hat is not on tonight because it is off for the entire week in honor of women's hockey, what it did for the world, showing little girls in any country that was able to witness that they can play any sport they want to, and they can do it at the level of the men. So there's that. Uh, Also, congratulations on that little curling deal. Not bad. Not bad, America.
That was a little surprising, I gotta say. The hockey I
But
knew.
speaking of America,
Oh,
had
nice.
the pleasure of enjoying the new America Bourbon, brought to you by America Bourbon, also known as Grunt Style. And I got to tell you, America Bourbon's where it's at. It's got the classic American style bottle, the Americana, like out of the hills bottle, the blown glass bottle. Simple labeling, the star. It's all in the flavor. Superior product. I'm gonna lay this out there. It's a better product than another leading drink.
Really, really,
When America come out with,
you
we'll
think
test.
it's a higher up on the taste scale, huh?
Yeah, I do. Well, it's bourbon.
Okay.
Everyone knows that. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm a rye guy. But I'm drinking bourbon tonight. I like it. It's my favorite bourbon right now. If they come out with a rye, we'll test it. Right now, my favorite rye though, is, but you know, we'll see. I'm supporting America, man. I'm all about this. I really think it's. They're not even paying me to say that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man,
We got ringing going on.
this is a great Games episode.
Yeah, this is craziness. He's gonna pick up one of these days. Why do I hear myself? Uh-oh. That's weird. You better. I hope our guest doesn't have me on speaker or listening to the show. This is weird. All right. I'm sorry, Toby. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just bringing our guest in, but now why is it ringing again? Okay.
Yeah. Welcome to Crank Yankers.
Talk about some tech issues right up front, and you were talking about bourbons. I feel terrible that I interrupted such a.
Yeah, I have tech issues.
Yeah.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic
Wow.
voice message system.
Okay.
63125940406
blah, blah, blah.
is not available. At the tone,
Okay.
please record your message.
Why?
When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Leave him a message. Go ahead.
I wanted to.
Go ahead. We're on his voicemail right now. Leave him a message.
Hey, Mike Scotty, you are live on Stu and the Nunn, except you're not here. It's your voicemail. I'm
sorry, but the person you called has a voicemail box that has not been set up yet.
Yeah. Okay. So
Goodbye.
we've never had this happen. And usually people answer.
Sure.
All right. Why do I hear myself? Why is it still? What is happening? It's just.
Hi, this is Natasha.
Let it go.
Sorry, Natasha. Sorry, wrong number. I'm sorry.
Hello?
Yep. All right, I gotta hang up. All right. Okay. I had to hang that one up, and yeah. Let me call Toby back. I don't know who Natasha is. I think the thing just started rolling through. Just started rolling through phone numbers. All right. Let's see if we can get him called back here. We got all kind of ringing going on. Okay, Toby, are you there?
I wanted to talk to Natasha.
I don't know who Natasha was.
Oh man, we missed a golden opportunity for some Facebook Live excitement.
Yeah, that was. But I think we like legally had to tell her you're live on the air or something like that, and then she probably didn't know.
This is
yeah. Maybe this could be a new thing we do on the show. Just call people randomly. Okay, I'm gonna for those watching.
I have a list of numbers we should start.
Start numbers. Can we start with certain people in the military fundraising nonprofit arena that we don't like, that never want to come on our show? We just call them. All right. Let me try.
I have a list of numbers.
What's that? All right. I thought you were talking. Let me try to add him again. The new Skype, let me just say this. Can I say this right now? The new Skype owned by Microsoft absolutely sucks. Freaking donkey butt. It has ever since they've made me upgrade. Microsoft has completely ruined a platform that was awesome for years and years and years. I've used professionally, personally. I've used it. That's how I stayed in contact from Afghanistan for a year. Lived off of Skype. The new one is absolutely horrible, and I hate it. So with that being said, I'm going to try to call Toby again, or Mike again. And for those watching who are wondering, why don't I see Toby? I blocked Toby out from the video because I'm calling through Skype, and I try to keep our guest phone number from being seen or shared, even though I think it shared it earlier. Okay, Mike, are you on?
Yes, sir.
Much Jesus,
clearer than before. Can
dude,
you hear me?
We got you. I got you 5x5, man. You're sounding good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, you missed a great one earlier because it for some reason tried to call you. We don't know what happened. You said you heard us, and then it rolled over and it called someone else, and a girl named Natasha answered. And knowing that you do bounce around Europe and everything, I thought maybe you had some kind of high-speed thing built into your phone. It just starts calling random European women.
No, I have no knowledge of that, sir. I don't know what you're talking about.
Good deal. All right. We got you on now. I know we only have you for a limited time, and I think we just pissed away a few of those minutes. So let me welcome Mr. Mike Scotty to the show. Mike, we had you on our old show many times, and I put up a little write-up today on our blog, and I kind of threw a thing up there. But the bottom line is, I'm going to give this very abbreviated, but please expand on it. Former Marine, you went on the invasion into Iraq in 03, what would be referred to as OIF-1, and you were a Marine fire support officer. You videoed along the way. Those videos and home movies that you made ended up turning into an awesome documentary film kind of thing. I guess documentary be called Severe Clear. At this not around the same time, I guess, or right before that, an HBO miniseries came out called Generation Kill, and that followed a real, or told the story of this real Marine unit going up there, and that was like your sister unit. In fact, some of those actual real soldiers are in some of your footage in Severe Clear. So those that have seen Generation Kill, it's pretty much that was kind of like your story almost for the same thing. And you've written some books. You are a stock market guy, and that's kind of where that kind of sum it up. Is that a good summary?
Yeah, no, that's a great summary. Yeah, I am a former Marine. I was in Afghanistan in 01 as part of the Marine Expeditionary Unit, the MEU, that left in August of 01. So on 9/11, we were the guys going in, right after, in October and November, into Pakistan, and then in December on the CH-53s off the ships into Afghanistan for the Camp Rhino stuff. And that was kind of the thing that triggered, like, hey, I should be videotaping this. These are the good old days, and that kind of snowballed into us having a couple of the lieutenants in our infantry battalion who had cameras, and some of that were the Arty battery that was trailing us in Iraq. And that's what got turned into the movie. So it's been interesting to kind of document that.
Yeah. So and you took that and you went from there and you wrote kind of a memoir of your life, and talked about a little bit about what it was like that you were in the financial world, the FinServ, we call financial services world beforehand. And that's kind of like combat in its own right, depending on how it goes for you. And you wrote about that and the craziness of that, and learned a lot from that. And that, last week we were talking about you coming on the show, and you probably don't know this unless you listen, but I called you one of the smartest guys I know. And I mean that. And I know that's probably kind of scary to you, because you must think I don't know a lot of smart people.
Because I'm a dumbass.
Yeah. But but you're a lovable dumbass, and you're cozy and cuddly, but you're an all around nice guy. No, seriously. So you've been overseas. I call you my Ernest Hemingway when I ever refer to you. You are quite a loose, free spirit, and you've been overseas writing. You're working on a novel, and so I wouldn't even mind just giving our listeners a little bit about why you're doing a novel, what's got you into that, and kind of how that journey has been.
Oh, sure, yeah. It's been a really interesting journey. Kind of once the movie was released, and it was a limited theatrical release in the U.S. and it was released overseas. It actually did pretty well, believe it or not, in Europe and the U.K. It sold, back 2010, 2011 when the DVDs were still selling. It sold a pretty big number of copies there in Australia.
Real quick. In the U.S. we called it Severe Clear, but in the U.K. it had a different name, right? In Europe?
Yeah, in the UK, it was, and in France, in Australia, in Italy, in Israel, and Japan, it's called This Is War. And because a different distributor kind of bought it, the foreign rights sold at the Cannes Film Festival in France, and it's kind of like the weird movie business stuff. There's these distributors, and they kind of lock up a country, and they have the exclusive right to distribute a film in a country. So in the U.S. it's called Severe Clear. Overseas it's called This Is War. It's got different boxes and things like that. That hold the Blu-rays or DVDs or whatever. So what was interesting was going to the actual theatrical events, actually seeing it in a theater. For instance, when it was in Italy, and it was at the Rome Film Festival, and I would sit in the back and I watched the audience watch the film, and it's a different audience, say, in Texas than it is in Rome, Italy. Obviously, different people, different culture, different views about the military and in war and combat in general. It's just interesting to see how they react, who gets the jokes, who doesn't get the jokes, and just the general vibe of the room. So long story short, when it was in the U.S., I traveled around the U.S. and sometimes I do Q&As and stuff after a screening. And there were a lot of young Marines and soldiers that would kind of come up to me at the end after the Q&A, and I could just see that they wanted to talk. And I could kind of see in their eyes that they had something that they were dealing with, just as many of us have dealt with. I certainly did, especially back in 2004, which was kind of like my dark time. After I got back from Iraq. And I realized I had always wanted to be a writer. That was the reason for videotaping to begin with, was to capture what we were doing in Iraq with the idea of writing a memoir. And it's obviously easier to just shoot 30 seconds of video. If you got the camera just easily available, it doesn't interfere with your job. You're focused outward on the enemy. You're just clicking a camera instead of looking through binos or whatever. But I started to realize that movie tells the story of the chaos and uncertainty and confusion that is combat. I think it does a pretty good job of that. But what it doesn't tell is about coming home from a war. And it's obviously, as we all know, reintegration can be difficult. There's things that are obviously awesome and make you very strong, from military service. But there's also things that you have to deal with if you've seen a lot of combat, if you've lost friends. I don't have to go too far down that rabbit hole. We all know somebody who's potentially taken their own life, or has been struggling, or it could be even us who, have struggled. So what I realized was, like, what needs to be told here, and this is 08, 09, kind of when we were at the beginning of this whole discussion about veterans and mental health and these type of issues of reintegration, was I need to just go into the bathroom and look in the mirror and just open my veins up and bleed all over the page, and just basically talk about what it was like for me in 03, in 04, in 05, in this world of leaving the Marine Corps, which I'd been in for, my entire adult life post-college. And I was in the enlisted Marine in the reserves while I was in college, and, went to Parasite and all that, and then became an officer after I got out of college. And so I'd been a Marine for a while, and also pre 9/11. So just kind of going across this whole arc of time as a Marine, going to Afghanistan, going to Iraq, and then just one day driving through the gate at Camp Pendleton in Las Palmas in my Toyota 4Runner, and with all my stuff in the back of it, and be like, okay, now what? And that's it. Your buddies are gone. You're a civilian, and you're like, wow, okay. And that, for me, that was, a week before that I was in Iraq.
Yeah.
And,
did you find
kind of
I like to get your real quick,
yeah,
I don't mean to pause you, but you brought up an interesting topic, and as
yeah.
somebody that's deployed from active duty, and I've deployed the National Guard, so from that reserve component perspective, and Toby has too, both types. Did you find it? I always found it a little bit more difficult for the reserve components for that exact reason, because you can literally come out of a battlefield and in a couple of days be like, say, driving in your 4Runner. Like, there you go, you're back in the world.
Sure.
Have a good one.
Well, we like I said, I was in the reserves when I was in college, and I was enlisted, and I was on active duty when I post college. But having been in the reserves and just going to those drills and the 2 weeks in the summer, all that stuff, like, you can see how look at the Marines. There was a Marine in Ohio that got hit really bad in Anbar out in western Iraq with their Amtrak hit some mines, and like one community lost several Marines from that area. And what ends up happening, especially with the reserves, like you're talking about, with you're activated, you're deactivated, you're activated, you're deactivated, you wreak havoc, especially in the years where it was really kind of at the crescendo of the deployments for the reserves, was they would fall through the cracks because the reservists would be activated. They would be sent to an active duty base. They would deploy from that base. They would redeploy to that base. Then they would just go home. And so you're not part of that active duty military base network. You're not living on or near the base. You're not. The spouses aren't talking to each other. It's like this fractured, vague situation where you kind of slip through the net. And we actually ended up starting a charity. We shut it down last year because we kind of declared victory. We raised over $10 million over 10 years. We helped thousands and thousands of families, called Reserve Aid. And, we had a retired Marine Master Gunnery Sergeant running it for us. Like 98 or 96% or wherever it was of the donation went directly to the people who needed it. Wasn't like one of these ones where they siphon off the money.
No, and I can give testament to that. You helped one of my own soldiers, and that was you guys came through at a critical time, and I'll never forget that. And he was in a bad spot, and I came to him like, hey, at Reserve Aid, I was like, I got a guy, and you were like, you guys made it happen. I mean, it was solid.
I'm glad to hear that, man.
Yeah,
glad to hear that. It's just one of those things, man. It was, and it wasn't me that founded it. It was this guy, Lucas Vitor, who's just a good, solid human being. And, he's an ex-Army guy. He used to drive tanks, and then he was in the Secret Service for a while. And just a great organization, and I'm, proud to have been a part of it. And I'm glad that it was able to help one of your guys. And it was good. It was time to shut it down. It was like the reserves aren't deploying anywhere near as much. And so it was like, okay, we're going to declare victory, go out on a high note. And we made a donation to, we started a scholarship at University of Albany. So that's where the rest of the money went. So back to driving through that gate at Las Pulgas in Camp Pendleton, you just kind of fall off a cliff. That your whole identity is gone. You take the uniform off. You just got back from a war. And I was trying to get into a graduate school to go, make a lot of money and get into the financial world and all that stuff. And that's very cutthroat. But what I didn't count on was kind of the emotional toll of just leaving the military and walking away from a war, especially, when you still have friends who had re-upped for another 4 years or whatever, who are still deployed. I moved to New York City, Manhattan, downtown Manhattan. I had known people who had perished in the World Trade Center, people that I went to high school with, people from my hometown. And, walking by that, I had this job where I was working nights, from midnight till 8 a.m. just to like fill holes in the resume. It was just like this crazy time. And I realized that when I saw those veterans who were 4, 5, 6 years younger than I was at those screenings, and this is several years later after I came back, I saw myself where I had been maybe 5, 6 years before that in their eyes. And that's when I realized that there's a big problem here, and that it's kind of like, all right, I was pretty messed up when I got back, and there's no shame in it. I was not okay. I was very, very not okay. And that's okay. And that's kind of the message that I kind of was given to me by a Navy psychiatrist who actually she was in a video that the Marine Corps put out called Cover Me. And that was like one of the truest things that I've ever heard. And so I was like, I need to write this memoir and just tell my story so that others can point to it and be like, I'm not alone. And I was very lucky to be able to sign with a literary agency because of the movie, and I just put everything I had into writing that memoir, and I got really lucky with it. And so now, 5 years later, I'm trying to do like a lateral move from writing nonfiction to writing novels. And novels they're not easy to write, and they're definitely not easy to sell. So that's kind of where I am now. I wrote a whole novel that didn't get published, and that was kind of like one of those moments where you're looking in the mirror and you're like, all right, I'm going to be a writer or I'm not. I'm either going to throw in the towel and go do something else, go back to the financial role or whatever. And I decided to give it another shot. And it takes a while to write a good book, and then it takes an even longer while to sell a book if it gets sold. So I'm kind of in that part of the process now, and we'll see what happens. So, but writing novels for me personally is enjoyable, and I think that those who have served in combat and made it through physically and emotionally owe it to themselves to just enjoy the hell out of the rest of their lives. Like, you can give back, you can be a good person, you can do what needs to be done, but you can also just enjoy your life and do what you want to do because you earned it. And that's the way I look at it. So that's what I'm doing. That makes sense.
Hey, Mike, it's Toby here. I don't know if you can hear me. My connection's not the best today. But hey, this transition from nonfiction to fiction, I'm excited about. I think you're a gifted storyteller, and one of the ways you can tell if someone's a gifted storyteller, they can tell the truth and relay a witness statement and make you want to be part of it. And so I'm excited about this transition to fiction. How are you feeling about it? Like, is it as easy as you thought, or are the character development going on in your head and the subject matter? I know you've been doing some traveling and immersing yourself. How's that working for you? Is it what you thought? Is it? I mean, I kind of have this romantic idea in my head of what it's like. Is it like that, or is it much more like a little more work than you thought?
That's a great question, man. The honest answer is that I don't. I actually enjoy the writing, and I enjoy the hunt for the story. And I don't start writing until I know, or at least I think, and my instincts tell me that the story is solid. And what I mean is that no matter what, the pages are going to turn. And I don't start writing until I know I have that kind of in my head. Some writers, some novelists, they'll like fly by the seat of their pants and they just see where it goes. I can't do that. I'm not that smart. I need a map. I got to think about every scene. I write out the scenes. I know where the turn in the scene is. I know where the inflection points in the story are. So the actual writing of it, for me, I love it. And because I love it, I'll just do whatever it takes, until the job is complete. The part that's hard that I didn't see coming, business part, is publishing industry. And, I got really lucky twice early on in this quote unquote creative career, first with the documentary and then with my memoir. And that's, I just got lucky. I got really lucky, and I'm learning my lessons now. And it's fine. Like, it's an uphill battle, but I'm learning those lessons now, and you just can't give up. So to answer your question, the actual creation of a novel for me is an enjoyable experience. Of course, it is tough. There's difficult pieces of it, but the book business, the publishing industry, is the actual difficult part of it. And what's interesting is that nowadays there's more options for people, but that makes it more difficult because there's between 800,000 and 1 million books a year that get published in America, between the big 5 publishers, the regional publishers, and the self-publishing. That's a lot, and it's hard to stand out. So what do you do? That's the question. So.
No, you're preaching to the choir. as a partner in Graybeard Books, a veteran, focused publishing company. This is something we talk about daily. My business partner in it, one of my business partners in it is Kelly Krieger. And, Kelly's a New York Times bestseller, and he did the transition from nonfiction to fiction. And it was like, it was a tough move. And a lot of the issues are, okay, now trying, when you're a veteran writing about the war, you have like this instant validity, right? If you've been you're a war fighter and you're talking about war fighting, well, it makes sense. Right. If you're a guy just writing about something, there has to be reason people to be inspired to purchase that book. And some people buy wine by the label. Some people bet on dogs by the way they walk out of the gates. People buy books the same way, right? And it's one of those tough things that you're trying to figure out. It's a weird ocean to navigate, because you're right. It's not a lake, it's not a pond, it's a downright ocean, because there are so many options. And I mean, you go into Barnes and Noble, if you don't go into Barnes and Noble or any bookstore, Books A Million or Amazon or wherever you do your book shopping, if you don't go there knowing what you're going to buy, how do you contact that person, right? How do you make that impression on them that, you should buy this book? Is it cover art? Is it, the title? There's so much more to it than people realize. And everyone in America, forget that, everyone in the world, a lot of people in the world believe they have a good story to tell.
And I,
like you said, how do you separate yourself?
How do you separate? Exactly. And there's like, and you just are faced with these decisions. You have to make the decisions, and then deploy your assets, whether that's your time, your energy, your money, your hope, your dreams, whatever that is, and just go for it. And that's just and we're kind of all traveling on our paths. It's but it's one of those things. I kind of I sometimes I wonder if I'm like, am I being tested, like almost by with myself? If I get a call from somebody from a former life, on Wall Street or whatever, who's like, hey, trash cannon, are you looking to get back into the game, or what, and that's out there every couple of years that happens, or 6 months or whatever that happens, and it's like, you just go, you just throw in the towel, and we're talking about like the travel. That's where it's like, okay, it's not, and I know it sounds cheesy, but they say it's not about the destination. A lot of times it's the journey. And for me, these historical novels are about also the discovery of a piece of history and the storyline. And I'm doing that while I'm there on the ground. And so it's like my job that I'm trying to be this writer, this novelist, and it's my job to figure that out. But I'm also in Norway, or I'm in Italy, or I'm in Estonia, or I'm in Helsinki, and it's cool. And it goes back to what I said before. It's like, well, we fought our wars when we were younger and in our prime, and now's the time to just enjoy the hell out of life. So, one thing I did do this time, understanding that a war documentary is what it is, and a war and post-war memoir, that is what it is, and there's a certain market for that. I kind of saw, like, okay, if you want to create something that is a work of fiction, whether it's a motion picture, feature film, or a novel, there needs to be a market for it if you want to try and sell it. And that's not saying that you have to do it for the money at all, because you can still tell a good and true story, but it's a lot easier in the end if there's a market for it. And that's something that I saw, like I said, with the documentary and a memoir. There's definitely a market for that, but there's novels that sell lots of copies, and it makes it for a more fun game. And so my goal for the novel that I just finished was to write something that was a true war story with truth. The battles were true. It was just a true story with real emotion and real characters, but that also had a large market. And so what it is, it's a story about an American airman who gets shot down off the coast of Norway in World War II. And he gets fished out of the water by these fishermen who are not who they seem. And he ends up at some point in the book trying to smuggle a 5-year-old orphan Jewish girl in a backpack on cross-country skis across Norway, which is occupied by the Germans, to try and get this little girl to Sweden, where it's a neutral country. And within that, one of the resistance fighters who's helping her and her brother are helping this guy, this American, because he's got to get out. Is this girl? Her name is Liv, and obviously there's a love interest between them. So it's a real war. It takes place in a real part of history. I was living in Stavanger, Norway when I wrote it, and I came up with the idea. And I went to Oslo, and I saw a backpack hanging on the wall. And said this backpack was used to smuggle Jewish children to Norway by the resistance on the cross-country skis. And I said, well, there's my next novel. And there is a picture of a guy, of a kid, 9 or 10 years old, on the wall. Never forget it. He was in the train station in Malmo. It was 1946. And there was like no photography in this museum, so of course I'm taking pictures, you know. And this kid is in a double-breasted suit. He's got a smirk on his face. And I look over my shoulder, and there's this old man, and he's smirking at me. And I was very emotional. It's a very emotional museum, this museum in Oslo. And I was like ready to, I was ready to go, fight in a war, after seeing what happened in Norway in World War II. And the guy knew I was taking pictures. He didn't care. He's working at the museum, and he taps me on the shoulder. He's like, does that young man in that picture, he look familiar to you? I said, and I looked, and I did a double take, and it was him. He had been smuggled in a backpack from Stavanger, Norway, to through Oslo to Sweden, and that's when I knew. I was like, that's definitely a sign from the universe right there. That's my next novel. Yeah. So I got a picture of him. I took a picture of him right there, and it was like,
no, like that. That's
blew my mind.
I assume you're hoping you're gonna put that picture in the book somewhere, like at the end or something like that.
Yeah. Something somewhere. Yeah, like and I was, because here's the thing. I was in Norway. I just like traveling around Europe and stuff in summer, especially like 2014. I was there, and I had no idea what like Norway's status was in World War II. I had no, and I'm a history buff. For some reason, I took a class on World War II in college, but I guess I missed the part about Norway, and it wasn't real clear to me. I'm ashamed to say it now, but I didn't know, like, did they fight? Were they occupied? I had no clue. And it was through that discovery that I realized, okay, they were occupied by the Germans, and there was resistance. And like I said, I saw that backpack, and I just lost my mind. And I met a guy who was, it's just so when you're talking about that journey, the writing, like that's what I do. And so those things happen when you're like truthfully searching, and you're just completely wide open. You're like, okay, this part of history happened. This is really interesting to me. Let's find like a human element to this whole thing that is also interesting to the American reader. And for me, I'm writing for, a lot of the readers of these type of books are going to be females, and they're probably going to be a little bit older in the age demographic, because that's who's going to read these type of books. So it's almost like a love story. It's almost like a war book with a love story stretched over it. And so I'm trying to make it interesting. There's a market for it, but I also love the battle scene. And if you can make the love story interesting, and you can also make the battle scenes interesting, somebody who would not normally watch a battle scene in a movie or read about it in a book, but when it's the characters that are part of the love story that are doing it, it makes it really interesting, because you can put stuff in there, especially when it comes to the resistance. And that's the stuff that I love to write. And it's, so what I'm hoping is that I can get this one published, and then I have several other ideas for books that take place, and I want to do one per country. I've got one. The next one, believe it or not, is in Florida, the Seminole Indians versus, and some stuff that happened in Key Biscayne. I've got an idea for Estonia, got one for Sweden, got one for the UK. Norway is this one. I got an idea for Finland about the Winter War.
Have you,
so
Mike? Mike, have you come up with anything for Costa Rica? I know that is a favorite spot of yours too.
Yeah, it was interesting. Costa Rica.
Maybe 75 shades darker gray, maybe something like that.
It's funny, man. I have all these other ideas for novels that are like modern novels. They're not like historical novels that take place in wars with a love story. Like, and I've always been fascinated by that idea of I've going to Costa Rica since the mid '90s when I was in high school, and just to watch it change and watch how, as the cartels started moving stuff over land versus over water, because it's that technology, Costa Rica itself has changed. And if you look at a map, like for the isthmus, there it's both. It stretches all the way across, right? So it's got the Caribbean coast and the Pacific coast. So anything that's moving north has to go through Costa Rica, and it's changed the place. It's changed it, and it's a little different than it used to be. But one thing that always interested me was like if you start reading like the history of South Florida and even some places now in Central America, sometimes things will wash up on the beach. So they used to call them the square grouper. Like there's bars called the square grouper down in South Florida which basically the fishermen were hauling, weed, big bales of weed and then also coke and stuff. And I always thought that was really interesting. What if there was a novel about a guy who's like a good kid, right? And maybe somewhere he's a Costa Rican kid or whatever, a Mexican kid. He's like a good kid. He's a good kid, and he's got a wife and a baby. He's like his nose is clean, but this like they call it paquete, like a package washes up on the beach and he comes across it, and it's like $400,000 worth of drugs, and this like just drops in his lap. I don't know, that could be an interesting story, and it's like once you kind of play with the devil, you get what you get,
Yeah.
So they have tons of stories, man. Who the hell knows?
Yeah, the title of that will be called Integrity Check.
The moral compass. Freeze your moral compass set to north.
That's it. Hey, Mike, I know you don't have a lot of time left, and we may have went over. If we have, we'll definitely, we're going to have you back on because you're about to go back overseas and for about a month and then be back. But I know there are some stories you wanted to relay. If you have time, if you wanted to get into one of those or from your Marine days, or did you want to save that until next time?
Yeah, let's save it. Let's save it for next time. The stories were about General Mattis, and yeah,
I've heard of that guy. I heard of that guy. He was, I think he was, he was a commander or something. He was pretty popular, I think.
Yeah, he's the man. I mean, one of the stories I told in the memoir, and I actually ran into him a couple of times, and he actually went to a book signing that I had at OCS, where the hell, in Quantico, a couple years ago, and there's a picture of me, him, like I'm just like awestruck, But he's just he's as good as it gets as a leader. But I'll tell you the stories. I gotta hop now, but next time we'll get into some good General Mass stories. But he really, I mean, that guy, I would die for that guy in a heartbeat to this day.
Absolutely.
To this day.
All right, man. So, well, hey, we thank you so much for coming on. We got you longer than we want. I don't want to make you late for your very important meetup you're about to do, but stay safe, brother, and we look forward to having you back on about maybe a month or so when you're back in the country, and who knows what new stories you will develop in the next month. Depending on
sounds good, fellas. Thanks for having me as always. Appreciate it very much.
Absolutely, Mike. You have a good night, man. Thanks a lot for Tuesday night.
You too.
All right.
See you, Toby. Bye.
See you. Take care, Mike.
All right, there we go, everybody. That was Mike Scotty, former Marine, current author and filmmaker. So if you haven't seen it, I think Severe Clear is still on. I don't know if it was on Redbox. I don't know if it's on Netflix, but Google it, find it. Someone's probably already ripped it to YouTube, but a great documentary, firsthand, and some pretty raw stuff, but not grotesque raw, but just like the stuff they were going through, the thoughts they were having.
Emotionally raw.
Yeah. You saw some good dark comedy that soldiers and grunts have at the very beginning, as they're especially Marines, man. They're on the poor Navy. It's like the Marines Uber. They're just on the ship cruising around.
No different than anybody else.
Yeah, no different. The humor's no different than anyone else, right? Exactly. That doesn't get easily here. But anyways, everybody, I was Mike Scotty. You are watching or listening to Stu and the Nunn, brought to you by the Enlisted 9 Fight Company. There you go, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, our sponsor. Very glad to have them on board. And at this point, Toby, I think we want to transition to some current topics. Don't you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Let's talk about what's going on.
So I'll just start it up. Well, we'll probably can rant on this for a while. So we'll go right into it. Right, the Florida shooting down at the Parkland, Florida, has been pretty much the thing on the news the last week plus 2 weeks. They go back to school tomorrow. They've been getting orienteering and orientation and briefings and all that stuff the last couple of days. They go back to school tomorrow, and there's a number of things that that come out of that story. And I just want to throw the topics out there, Toby, and then you dive into what you want. Of course, the first reports on the battlefield are always wrong, not only from the good side but for the bad side. So not only the shooter and how many there were and all that kind of stuff, but also the heroic actions or what people thought were heroic actions. The politics of the sheriff, the brazen arrogance of the sheriff, the attack of the NRA and all the business things that are happening with that. All this stuff has come out of this. The protests, kids loading buses, going to Washington, going to Tampa, kids who trying to instill change. Great idea, great for them. But all that you got the Florida State Assembly today for the second time not passing a gun and what they call an assault rifle ban, and then also at the same time you have schools in Ohio that have armed teachers for a while, and today schools in Kentucky that passed a law, or the school district did in the town, that the teachers can carry concealed there. All of that, and that's only a fraction, has come out of this one story from a week and a half ago. Where would you like to jump on first, Toby?
First and foremost, I want to jump on with the kids. We're going to start there because I think a lot of things are kind of born out of like this discussion with the kids. So up front, I want to say that kids do have a viable voice. When I say they have a viable voice, I believe that 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old individuals have a fairly well-educated, decent understanding of their surroundings. Now, with that said, I also believe that their surroundings are extremely limited. And they this tiny little high school or their college at that age, at the higher end of that scales age, which that does not a breadth of experience, right? So there's some people in there that do have some experience. There's some people in there that do have a solid. Everything that's coming out of the children on both sides is extremely emotional. Everyone knows that at that age, prepubescent, pubescent area, people are extremely driven, extremely emotionally driven. And I want to make sure that in my statement here, I'm not discrediting their understanding of their situation. However, I believe that their understanding of their situation is limited by the perspective of which they have, and based out of experience, theirs, it's not very much. Now you have these kids, and we have it here in Austin, Texas. We had it here last week. I got into a really fruitful dialogue with some folks because some kids at a local school, middle school in Austin, Texas, left, abandoned their schoolwork, and went out onto the street to protest guns. Okay, kids walking out of school, that's not helping the cause. That's not helping their cause. Kids walking out of schools aren't helping any cause other than the fact that they don't want to do homework. All right. And one of the things we've learned in the past year and a bit, if kids want to walk out of school, we give them, like the great, social media pacifier, which is attention. And, they say what they want to say. And then a day or two later, they go back to school like nothing ever happened. You got this young kid, Hogue or whatever, that's saying he's not going back to school till something changes. Apparently, while he's not going to a physical brick and mortar school, he should probably take some civics classes or just turn on Sesame Street and understand a little Schoolhouse Rock.
Yeah, interesting story about him. His dad's a retired FBI agent, and he is a budding wannabe journalist, and has been doing a lot of stuff on social media before this happened. He has seen become the face.
Well, he's a straight up actor.
Yeah, he's become the face of the left media. I mean, the kids get more FaceTime than Cuomo or or any other of the morning talk show folks.
Well, what Mike Scotty needs to do is find out who that kid's agent is, and then talk to that agent, because Mike Scotty's been in a lot more firefights than that kid has, and probably has a better understanding. 10% of the coverage that kid's getting, like maybe that would change the outlook of his book sales.
Yeah, I like to jump on.
Not saying they're bad. I'm just saying,
right.
Like,
no. I want to jump on the right while we're on the kid thing real quick. I sent you some text over the last few days, and I'll kind of put this the best way I know. I agree, right? The kids should have a voice. The youth, and they're going to be the leaders one day, and they should have a voice. But as I think I put it up on my Facebook, and there's been a lot of dialogue and chatter on that from friends, especially from the left. A kid trying to tell the American people or tell me about how American domestic policy should be would be like any plain Jane civilian that's never served or has any connection to the military trying to tell me how to conduct military combat operations, right? Or a kid trying to advise us on foreign policy or something. It's great. You're hurting, and my heart goes out to the kids. My heart goes out more to the families and those that are directly impacted, because every one of those 17, and you think about parents and siblings and aunts and uncles and grandparents and close family friends, I mean, you're talking dozens and dozens of people hurting from one child being lost. And and whether it's the kid that was up at the White House with the little goatee beard, his brother, their text became very, very famous and went viral. Take nothing from them. You get to be in pain. You get to have a voice. You get to say whatever you want, whether I agree with you or not. You deserve that. But to try to take that, and this Ho kid, he's actually being credited with getting most of these businesses to leave the NRA, because he was tweeting. I saw a thing the other day. He would tweet calling out Hertz and saying, "Are you going to support the NRA?" And then 4 hours later, they're literally putting out a statement that they're disconnecting. He would do it to Delta. He did it to United. The kid I'm sure he's got the blue check mark now, and he's got, hundreds of thousands of followers. He's definitely made an impact. But, to be on there saying, no spring break, everyone should not come to Florida spring break until the Florida legislature passes something. They're still going to come to spring break. They're college kids, right? They're not going to listen to a high school kid. Go ahead.
Yeah, so to caveat what you just said, someone made the comment, and when I say someone, I mean MSNBC, made the comment that this guy will have more Twitter followers now than the NRA. Right, great. Twitter followers don't equate to donations. Twitter followers don't correlate to votes. Having a social media presence, this is a new thing. Like, the kids understand social media better than we do, right? And they operate in it better than we do, because this is all they know, and it's an ever evolving thing. And us adults, we're still trying to get used to the beginning of it. Right, we're trying to get used to the beginning of it while they're advancing the future of it. But to me, lecture on companies like I'm going to use Delta as an example. So Delta, they pressure, and they're like, we're going to separate. And all these companies are interconnected. They have a lot of incestuous relationships. Hertz, Delta, all these travel a lot of incestuous relationships. When the lieutenant governor of Georgia says, you know what, hey, no problem, you want to not help in ours, which are millions strong. Now, this isn't like people following someone on Twitter. This isn't a bot that's being created a member that pays a lot of money to be a member because they believe in something. If you want to alienate, exclude them, no problem. We're gonna take them away. That's where people find out where the strength is.
Yeah.
So.
Because the strength's in the dollar, not the follower.
Yeah, he's calling her out by name. He's on national television calling her the CEO, which I was impressed that MSNBC this, press this week, corrected. Like doing that, that's all great. That's sensational. That's strong. That's cool. And that's getting you a lot of street cred. But the reality is, one of the things that no one on that side seems to want to admit to is it doesn't matter. Every union, the federal government and the Supreme Court of America, the U.S. Supreme Court, could come down and the next is, you know what? Rifles with detachable clips are now illegal. So they do that. What happened to the millions of legally and lawfully purchased weapons in existence? Right. Because someone makes a bill, someone makes a piece of legislation, a court ruling comes down, this magic stroke of a pen, this is where the pen is not mightier than the sword. This magic stroke of the pen isn't going to make what's in, say, a gun safe not far from me disappear. It was purchased legally. It was purchased lawfully, whoever it might be. It could be my neighbor. I'm sure all around me have them. You've seen my neighborhood. Everyone has them. And they're all law enforcement.
Except for that one neighbor. Except for the one right next door. I don't know if he has one.
One guy. He's got raccoons instead of like ARs. But I
threw you off there.
True story. We'll tell some other time.
Yeah, we'll tell some other time.
Yeah, off air in a different chat room. But, these don't disappear. And this notion that if you ban something or if you say, like, don't do it, I mean, all it takes is a kid to, like, put on a thinking hat for, say, the United States of America says, if you're under 21, you can't drink. These kids that are saying ban guns are the same kids that are all hanging out, smoking weed and drinking.
No,
now there's some good kids in there that aren't. As John, and there's some good kids that aren't drinking right now.
As John Kaiser says, they're also the same ones that eat Tide Pods and can't figure out what bathroom to use. Right.
Right. But just because you make a law against something doesn't mean it goes away. And I absolutely admire and appreciate where they, and when I say they, I mean everybody that is trying to do something about these tragedies from happening. I myself would like to consider myself someone that will participate in doing something about these tragedies.
Right.
17 children being killed is horrible. But the reality is you have to come at it from a different way.
Well, I want to, if I can hit on one thing real quick there, Toby. I think the way we're coming at this is from the completely wrong angle. And I take this back to the Michael Brown thing. Right, I'm gonna relate this back to that. So Michael Brown, it was all about hands up, don't shoot, and blah blah blah, and that he did it. But then all the evidence came out. Right, first reports on the battlefield are always wrong. So all this evidence came out, and it was found out that he robbed the store and he assaulted the cop and he outweighed the cop by like a couple 100 pounds, and the cop's injuries and everything and the witnesses were all that he really like attacked this cop in his cop car. But the narrative or the story was still the hands up, don't shoot. Right. I kind of relate that to this. So what has been this, everyone is going after is the guy was too young. He shouldn't have been able to buy a rifle. And by the way, for anyone listening who doesn't know this, AR does not stand for assault rifle. Let me say it again. AR does not stand for assault rifle. It stands for Armalite, which was the first manufacturer of that style of weapon. Armalite. So you can figure, if you ever think it relates to that, it doesn't. Anyways, sorry, quick tangent there. But it was all about, the age and how'd he buy it and, all this kind of stuff. But then what do we see that comes out? We have cops, potentially up to 4, who refuse to go into the building. Now there's stories out of the EMTs weren't even allowed in the building, that cops are holding them back. We have a sheriff who was called, sheriff's department was called, who loved to go on with Jake Tapper and just rip Dana Loesch and Rubio apart and get the crowd all amped up who's in pain and hurting. So talk about exploiting victims. Knowing that his department had been called 37 or 39 times, it really doesn't matter any more than 1 or 2. to this kid's house. The FBI was the guy. I mean, unlike, and we talked about this last week a little bit. Unlike we talked about, the shooter in Las Vegas, which stayed so below the radar that they still can't figure out why the hell he did what he did. This dude had everything but a freaking billboard and a neon sign strapped to the top of his head telling him he was going to do it. They had banned him from carrying a backpack to school. The cops had been called and told, you need to come get his guns. He is going to shoot up a school one day. He was on meds. They had been to his house all the time. Everything in the world, every system or checks and balances of the world that could have caught him was there. That is where the failures, that in addition to the guy even himself, this Nicholas Cruz, called 911 talking about he just lost his mom, which he had, and he's just thinking bad thoughts and he's doing this kind of stuff. Even he almost called and told on himself months ahead of time. I mean, every opportunity was there. It has nothing to do that he bought an AR or if he'd have bought a freaking Ruger 1022, which, by the way, 22, 223, same bullet, a little bit longer, more cartridge. Anyways, it wouldn't have mattered if he'd have had a couple Glocks. It wouldn't have mattered if he'd had a 12-gauge shotgun, which he could have legally bought. All the things were there to prevent it. Unlike what happened in Las Vegas, where the guy purposely stayed stealthy. So they can point their fingers all day at a weapon. They can point their fingers all day at the age. But what it comes down to is everyone disregarded it, forgot about it, and it came down to unarmed coaches and teachers and other students, like junior ROTC students, shielding and selflessly putting their bodies and their lives on the line to save other people. Every other system failed. At least the FBI took accountability and took responsibility and said, we failed. Unlike this douche magnet of a freaking sheriff who sits there and look on a straight face and says he's a great leader and can't take and is not responsible for his people. What happens when a ship in the middle of the night gets hit by another ship? The Navy fires them, they relieve them. Now they're charging those commanders in a second. What happens to any leader, from a team leader in the Army to a Navy admiral, if someone in their command screws up? They get done. How is this sheriff not held to that same standard? I'm off my rant.
Here's one of the broader issues with this, and it's called accountability and responsibility. You and I both were educated, and it grew in a knowledge base, ability and responsibility. And we know that by definition, leadership is the art of influencing a unit, to accomplish providing purpose, direction, and motivation. Like, we know that's what leadership is. We also know that leadership means that being a leader means that you are responsible for everything that your unit does and fails to do. In this, he's absolutely responsible for everything that his department's done well, and the things that they have not done well is that after repeated interactions with certain individuals or revolving around individuals, they failed to act in a manner that prevented this atrocity from happening. Number two, he, in his hiring process, of vetting individuals that, when the time came, would respond to the call. They have one job. If you're a police officer, and I work out with several every day. I live on a street with bunches, and I have no saying this to them, and they have no issue, to my knowledge, receiving this message. If you're a cop and you're willing into a fight gun, you shouldn't be a cop. That's your job. Your job is to serve and protect. And you're hiring people that are willing to do. Now, I've met men that have faltered under fire, and in some of those cases, the person owned it, and we did everything in our power to help them find, in a positive way, a place for them to be, that they could continue to serve, that would benefit the organization, and it would benefit the government, and it would benefit the people of America. When people fire and they did not, that's a character flaw that is inexcusable. Yeah. You can't be here. You can't do this. And so, like, one of the harsh realities is this guy, as a leader, didn't responsibility for what his unit failed to do. He didn't take responsibility for the people that he hired that failed to do their job. And he hasn't taken responsibility for the outcome of what his leadership or his culture of leadership is. He says he's a great leader. He doesn't understand he's not.
When you have to say when you have to say you're a great leader, you're not a great leader.
Not a great leader. He doesn't understand that he's not a leader. He's a manager. He might be a fantastic manager, but he is not a leader. It's just like this yahoo out in California that was running his mouth, that's on city council, that was a teacher talking smack about, like, how inept the military is and how untalented and how, like, futureless they are. That guy holds a seat and was a mayor of a town and thinks that he's a leader. He's not a leader. If he was a leader, he would say, you know what? I've alienated a major part of my demographic, the people that I'm supposedly leading. I've failed there. I'm not a leader. I'm just a manager. I'm someone that take information, manage it, and then disperse it in a different capacity. He's not a leader. He's a manager. He absolutely should be fired. Happy to see that there's a group of legislators, state legislators from the great state of Florida, that have requested the Attorney General's office of the state of Florida to revoke his law enforcement license. He doesn't deserve to have it. He might have been a great cop. He might have been an amazing. He might have been a heroic cop. That's great. In this capacity, he has not done well. And
sometimes people can be great nugs, but they're not good leaders, right? Sometimes people can be great 60 gunners or 240 gunners or E4s, but they're not meant to be a squad leader, right? They'll follow orders and execute with precision, but not lead other people.
And this is what separates Theodore Roosevelt from people. And the reason I bring up Theodore Roosevelt is not only was, he a great president, a great commander in chief of this nation, he was the police commissioner of the great city of New York. And when I bring this up, he was a leader. He was not a follower. He was a leader. He was a man that took responsibility for what was good and what was bad within his unit. I'm talking like not just rough. I'm talking like this guy came and did a lot of different things. And if you're in law enforcement and you're at a senior level, and I would say being the sheriff of a large county, especially Broward County, one of the largest counties, demographically in America, you should be of the utmost ability. This gentleman, the fact that people are calling for his resignation should be an indicator. Now, with that said, I also believe that you shouldn't fall victim to cyberbullying. Just because a million kids on Twitter are saying that you shouldn't rent cars to people that, like guns, is one thing. But if you fail to understand that your decisions and your policies and your practices directly reflect the deaths of 17 people in one day, you're a failure.
Yeah.
I pray for him. I feel bad because if I was in his position, and I don't mean from bad conscience. I mean just from the understanding that, like, I'm responsible for that. I know,
but you know what, Toby? Look where he comes from. He's got repeated pictures, and oh my God, look over there, he is right there. Pictures of him hanging out with Hillary. He was on her team. He was on Team Obama. Pictures with Bernie and all that stuff. So when you think about, multiple pictures of Hillary where she actually thanked him for his service and his help and contributions he helped fundraise for in South Florida. Look, has she yet accepted responsibility for her loss over a year ago? No. That's he's cut from that same cloth. He cannot accept responsibility for his own failures, right? That's if if in the military they let people decide whether they want to quit or not. I'm sure there's a lot that wouldn't do it there either, but they don't give you that choice. If you fail, they relieve you of command for no trust in your leadership, and that's it. And but he comes from that kind of crowd that, hey, I'm not going to take responsibility. It's everyone but me, right? And I mean, for him to sit there, and I gotta say, I think even Jake Tapper, CNN, and I think a large part of this country looked at the Sunday news talk shows when he sat there and said he was an amazing leader, and he accepts no responsibility for the actions. He said, I equipped him, I trained him, I taught him how to shoot, but what that guy does is on his. Man, you wouldn't last a New York second in any reputable organization, whether it's a military or another law enforcement organization or anywhere where they counted on you to be a leader, if you were to sit there and say, I don't know why that soldier or whatever, or platoon sergeant or whole company in my battalion went and did that. I got them training and sent them to schools, but what they do is what they do.
Yeah, there's on the lower right-hand corner of the NCOER for the Army, there's a little block that says values, and that would be like no,
which pretty much ends your career. And just in case anyone's wondering, when you get that checked, your career is going to end the next time your service commitment ends up, because you're going to be done. Yeah.
So the other thing that's really kind of, to circle back to the kids, what's really kind of disappointing is how many people, find this as an opportunity. Like George Clooney. George Clooney and his wife have donated $500,000 to help these kids get there. It's like, why don't you spend $500,000 on buying textbooks that properly educate Americans in school about how to be American? Meaning, when I say how to be American, before you all get, crazy and racist on me, I understand the system. Immigrant, currently immigrating, I have to take a test. Maybe you could take it and pass, maybe you couldn't. It's not as easy as you think. But that's because I'm learning to be an American.
Yeah. Most people I know that have taken that test. Most people I know have taken that test are so much smarter than people that are born here. I mean, because a lot of them have asked me the questions that they get asked in that test, which is a very difficult test. And many of, surprised I answer the number that I do, because it's like most people cannot answer those questions. It's a lot of our country's history. People really go through that naturalization process, are much stronger and deeper in American knowledge than Americans that are shot out in this country.
Yeah, and the point I'm making isn't to toot my horn. The point I'm making is spend this $500,000, George Clooney, on helping these kids understand the American process, helping them understand how their voice can be heard.
Well, they could also
turn 18 to vote.
He could also. Sorry, you're broken up there. I'm sorry.
The impact that you can make.
Go ahead. You're sorry, broken up. You had some little bit of choppiness. I was gonna say though, another thing he could spend money on. He could spend that $500,000 on maybe. He could hire a couple mental health counselors for that school, or any number of schools. Maybe put some metal detectors in. Maybe that's a big talk right now too. We protect our airports. We protect every courthouse. We protect every federal building. The one father, that one dad that's been on the media that went up to the White House and lost his poor daughter. The guy is just like, he doesn't care. He's like, we do all this other stuff. We need to protect our kids. I absolutely agree with that guy. It's a shame that it's gotten to the point that we have to put metal detectors in every schools, and not just the ones we suspect are going to have the worst crime. But it's also a shame we have to do half the things we do nowadays in this country we didn't have to do 20 years ago. That's just the way the society has turned out, right? But I mean, spend the $500,000 for that. You could buy a lot of metal detectors, George Clooney. You could pay a year's salary for probably 2 or 3 mental health counselors. I don't know how much you get paid, but $500,000 would probably buy a couple of them for a year, and screen children. I mean, any number of things you could spend it on better than busing kids up to Washington just to tout your political statement, right? And I heard one other thing, Toby. I don't know if you've heard this. I want to bring this up. I don't know how valid it is. I saw it on a couple of those alt-right websites, but it looks like it's valid. I need to investigate it more. There is talk that the reason this happened comes from Miami County schools, and it has to do. And I haven't investigated this yet, but I need to research it. That there's a program that if schools have too many arrests and too many criminals, too many kids being arrested, it puts federal funding at a risk for that school if too many of their students are being arrested and incarcerated. So Miami County figured that out a long time ago and started working out deals with the local police department where they wouldn't charge kids. And that Broward County picked up on the same thing. And they're saying that is why the sheriffs visited this kid's house 37 to 39 times, but never arrested him. Because if they arrest him and they get too many arrested in a school district, they lose funding. I don't know if you've heard anything about that. I just picked up on that last night, and I've seen it from 2 different sources now. How true that is, I don't know. But I wonder, they're saying that's the real reason this happened.
I haven't seen anything on that, but let's just kind of unpack that for a quick second, though. The first part of your comment, if I go to a hockey game, I'm subject to search because I'm going into public. Like that. If you're going to fly, you're going to do all these things. You're subject to search. That's kind of what's up. If you're going to attend a public school, you should be subject to search. My son, in California, his later years, he was in Inglewood for a hot minute, and when he went to school in Inglewood, they passed through metal detectors, and they were not allowed to have backpacks that weren't see-through. It either had to be clear plastic or mesh that it could, hands in the morning. It was subject to the school security. I have no issues with that. You enter into a public place, your right to privacy. Your school locker is not a sanctuary for you. It's not a place of security. It's not your castle. You want to go and engage in education that other people are paying for. You should be subject to those. I have zero issue with that, and I think at a minimum that should immediately be in place, no matter what. And I got kids in high school right now, and I got a child that's entering middle school. I got no issues with that. I'm not offended by that in any way. One, because if my kids take the school that they shouldn't be taking, I want to know about it. That's called parenting. That's called being responsible for what your kids do or don't do. There's more to school than getting a report card. There's more to, you're learning about social interaction. I want to learn what my kids are talking about in social media. I want to know that stuff. So here's the thing. It's like, all these kids that are out there protesting, they want everyone to listen to them, but they need to understand, you need to succumb to these rules. You need to succumb to, you want to be part of the social contract. You want to participate in the social contract. Well, you need to pay in. And right now, the social contract that people need to pay into in terms of public education is security. You want school shooting to stop? Don't make it easy for guys and gals to get onto schools with weapons.
Right. Yeah, that's it.
And then we'll talk about weapons.
Right. And we'll talk about, again, mental health. I mean, it just shocked me when I heard, besides the teacher not going in, but when the Broward County sheriffs have been called. I mean, I get it, FBI missed it. Okay, it's FBI. They got a lot going on. Somebody saying something on the internet dumb. I mean, that happens all the time. Look at Twitter. It's like I heard it today. It's like the X-ray machine in the a-holes. I mean, Twitter is like the worst. It's just the most worse and vile that you can imagine is on there. But I could see the FBI missing that. But for a sheriff's department of a county sheriff being called 30-something times to one house and not doing something, for someone to call in and say this guy's got guns and he's going to shoot up a school, for the shooter himself to call in and say I'm in a bad place right now and all that kind of stuff. How do you not connect those dots? Freaking Helen Keller could have seen and connected those dots. No offense to Helen Keller, but I mean, it was clear as day, and that's what's shocking me more. It shocks me more than The cop not going in. He froze, like you said earlier. I've seen it too in combat. Heroes, you guys you think are going to be heroes turn into zeros, right? I always say bullets in the cold will turn a boy into a man or a man into a boy. And sometimes the guys you think are going to be the most awesome cower, and the ones you think are screw ups step up and freaking they're putting a medal of honor around their neck, right? So it doesn't surprise me that the guy froze when he was faced with that, maybe for the first time. Maybe he was a 30-something year cop. Maybe he never got shot at before. But that doesn't surprise me near as much as the number of times they were alerted to this guy, and even the guy alerting himself, and they missed it. There's no law. There's no minimum age or anything that's going to stop that. You know, but, well, we covered a lot tonight. Hey, real quick, I want to say, Honey Hitler is over.
Yes.
Season 3 is over, and if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it, because, man, that last one was a freaking slam dunk. Oh, my Lord. That was awesome.
No, it's heartbreaking because we're about to wrap, and one of the reasons our show's running a little bit later today is because, like, there's no Hunting Hitler on it.
Yeah.
So Tim and everybody involved in that, great job. Super impressed by it. You guys knocked it out of the, not what I anticipated. Here we are 3 seasons in, and I'm just as mind blown as I was hearing about the potential. Speaking of potentials of the show, we got a lot of great stuff coming up. We ran a little bit late tonight, but thanks for bearing with us. Everyone in the chat room, D and Scott and John and everybody. You know, your mom is in there. Doug, well, he went to bed because he's tired. But you know, everyone we see that's in there, thanks for tuning in tonight, and appreciate it. Chippy, everybody. Shout out to Fire and Ice Pizza, as always, you know, for helping us eat healthy when we eat that pies and those wings. It's always good to be there and enjoy Fire and Ice Pizza in Rock near 35 and 45. If you need a good artisan pizza, they're a great place to go. E9, Enlisted 9 Fight Club, the number 1 sponsor, helping us give the gun show because, you know, we hit the gym with Chris Biggs every day and get the muscles big. But we got a couple of really good shows coming on.
Mesquite Creek Outfitters.
One in Mesquite Creek Outfitters, which we were going to be broadcasting from next week. Unfortunately, they booked something more important. Somebody's like party, whoever you are.
Yeah.
For ruining our broadcast. We have some great stuff coming up in terms of guests. Want to remind everybody that you can learn more about the show. Follow more, of course, on Facebook. Like our page. Follow us on Twitter. But our website, stewandthenunn.com, is a wonderful place. Look for coming up in the next little. We're going to be touching into some things. I'm going to be doing some writing. I know it's been a minute, so I'll be doing some blog posts on there. I'll look forward to Troy's year. We're excited about that. But you can always follow him on boohammer.com because he writes there all the time because he's kind of like.
I haven't written in a while, so I need to. But yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, definitely follow Boo Hammer on Twitter. So you can follow Toby Nunn, boohammer.com, follow our Facebooks, all that good stuff. And as Toby said, thank you so much. It's a long show tonight, hour and a half. Mike was on longer than we thought. We had a lot of stuff to talk about. There's a ton more we never even got into. We got memos. We got we got Schiff, we got a ton of stuff, but you're seeing a lot of that on the 24-hour news channel. So if you wanted just our perspective, maybe next week. But we do have some great guests we're working on, as we've had some great ones the last few weeks. So with all that, thank you all for joining us on this Tuesday night. And I'll be starting a GoFundMe page so Toby can get even better internet, because his I don't know what's going on. It was still choppy tonight, but anyways, just messing with you, Tobe. But it was a little in and out. So anyone that had a little problem hearing, sorry about that. It cut a little bit. But anyways, thank you for joining us. Come back next Tuesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, here at stewandthenunn.com on any of our medium outlets. And tune in. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes. And with that, we're going to go to the outro, and everybody have a good night. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Stu and the Nunn Radio. We hope you enjoyed your time with us because we have enjoyed sharing our time. Be sure to check out stewandthenunn.com in addition to asking us questions and interacting with us on our Facebook page and Twitter. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern here on Spreaker and Facebook Live. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Warrior Media Solutions, BlueHammer.com, Better and Outdoors, Graybeard Publishing, and Mighty Oaks Warrior. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Thank you again, and have a good night.